collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, Cyprus is to get its first ever veterinary school, and it could have a great impact on animal welfare here.
The veterinary school will indeed significantly contribute towards improving the welfare of animals. In this country, we do not have very good farming practices in terms of farm animals.
You're invited to see robots in action at the upcoming Robotex competition.
A festival of children of all ages competing on different challenges using different kinds of robots.
Come the autumn, Cyprus is to get its first ever School of Veterinary Medicine. Now, the Dean of the newly established Veterinary School at the University of Nicosia is Professor of Genetics Stavros Malas. He joins us now. Stavros, this is very exciting, I think, for Cyprus because first ever veterinary school, and I think it's based on the very successful model of the University of Nicosia Medical School.
Yes, indeed, Rosie. Thank you very much for the invitation to share with you this, historic day for us at the University of Nicosia. Indeed, this is really the culmination of many years of effort, I have to say. It started 6 years ago, before I joined the university, and we're today in a position really to announce the establishment of the veterinary school. And indeed, as you said, the success of the medical school, which is really the largest in the country and the most successful, underpinned this effort to establish this sort of twin, if you like, school, the veterinary school. We strongly believe that vet schools and medical schools should really coexist together because they have so much in common. So yes, it is so important for us. It's a milestone achievement.
I was interested to see that the concept of One Health underlines the whole structure, because that stipulates that in a healthy and sustainable environment, human health is closely linked to animal health. Now, I think that's been brought into focus with the pandemic and the possibility that it originated in animals. But it also made me think about the way we treat animals here in Cyprus. Are you hoping that having a veterinary school here may, if you like, bring into focus the fact that we don't treat animals very well in Cyprus as a rule?
Well, we'll take first the link between animal health and human health, and of course the health of the environment, which is really this triangular relationship making up what we call One Health. So we very much like this idea. We very much developed the program along the lines of One Health, but also the training program that we will follow. We'll have a lot of what we call interprofessional learning. That is, the veterinarians or the future veterinarians will learn from the future medics, and vice versa. So common techniques, common approaches, and so on. So that's one aspect of the training. The other aspect, of course, is the one you just said, in that if we have healthy animals, or if we have unhealthy animals, then clearly the health of humans is impressed upon. We consume a lot of animal products, like meat, like milk, and we need to keep, first of all, the welfare of animals into the best possible conditions. I refer now to farm animals. So the veterinary school will indeed significantly contribute towards improving the welfare of animals. And I want to just say a thing about farm animals, because today in my presentation I highlighted that in this country we do not have very good farming practices in terms of farm animals, and that's impacting upon the productivity of the animals, on their health, and of course the quality of the produce we consume. I did say in no uncertain terms that we drink milk which is under the sort of status of subclinical mastitis. In other words, it's on the borderline, right? And the reason for that is because the animals are kept in substandard conditions, and the farms are not of good quality, and they're all packed up on top of each other in various what they call farming zones, which is really the catastrophe of the farming industry. On the other hand, if we were talking about the companion animals, yes, we need to improve the welfare of these animals, to improve the quality of care. and the university has decided to build the very first referral hospital for small animals, for companion animals. We do not have one in Cyprus. So we hope that not only we will contribute towards significantly improving the health of farm animals, but also the actual treatment of companion animals too.
And you didn't mention there, I noticed, the overuse, which is well documented, in Cyprus of antibiotics prophylactically in particularly cattle, but also, I think, in sheep and goats.
That's right. No, I think I want to thank you for bringing that up, because part of the training of our students is actually going to take place in an antibiotic-free farm. There is one in Cyprus, actually. And we want to train the students in that direction because, first of all, the overuse of antibiotics creates a lot of resistant strains for bacteria, and that can impose also a threat to human health, as well as the animal health. But on the other hand, if you are really using different practices, alternative approaches to treating animals, and in an antibiotic-free environment, you're actually contributing towards sustainable development of the farming industry in a country of severe climate change, because climate change actually puts an additional burden on the environment. It really leads to the development of new strains, and if you actually put an additional pressure on that is antibiotics, then you're making the situation a lot more difficult. The other thing I want to say is that the use of antibiotics and bad farming practices significantly contributes towards the greenhouse effect, because the methane released from cows contributes towards the greenhouse effect by 15%. The contribution of methane compared to carbon dioxide is 24 times more. So it is a more potent, if you like, greenhouse effect of the methane released from animals than the one released from cars. So you want to make sure that these animals are living in good conditions, because that minimizes methane release too. So it's a very sort of complicated situation.
It's quite tricky, isn't it, in Cyprus, because we don't have masses of green fields because of our climate, and yet it does seem to me that with that in mind, we still raise an awful lot of cattle, as you said, in muddy farms feeding on hay or whatever. But should we perhaps think about changing our farming model somewhat and going back to the free-ranging goats and sheep in the higher echelons of the mountains, where they don't have to be fed other food, they forage?
Right. Well, you're prompting me to actually sort of take off my academic, not take it off, but add on the political hat, if you like. That was exactly what I had to propose in 2017. In other words, to relocate completely all the farms, in particular cattle and to some extent the goat and sheep, on the perimeter of all forests. You know, Cyprus has a very peculiar geography in the heart of the country, where the forest and on periphery got the flat land. So you want to move away from the flat land. You want to move away from areas of high humidity, and put the animals on the perimeter of the forest in very large farms, allowing also for grazing, which does two things. First of all, improves the quality of the conditions the animals live in too. That's important. Second, you're protecting the forest. We would protect the perimeter of the forest by having free-range animals. We improve the health, as I said, but at the same time, you're actually allowing these animals to really graze under natural conditions. Now, we're not going to move away significantly from using some of the condensed wood and so on, Rosie, because these animals need to be productive. However, we can allocate certain farms, as they do in the United States, for actually producing free-range meat and free-range products, while at the same time actually protecting the forest, because all the fires in the forest actually begin from the perimeter. They're not beginning in the heart of the forest. The British during the 40s and earlier, we had a lot of grazing animals within the forest, and they decided to take them out. And at that time, it was when we had the biggest fires. And if somebody goes to the area of Pomos and Bahiamos near Biros, there is a free-range farm there, actually, within the forest under the perimeter, and we've never, ever had any fires there. So it's another example that, yes, we need to change completely the model of keeping these animals and align them with the needs of the environment. Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that if you have free-ranging animals, they are actually improving the soil, are they not?
Absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely. The actual flora of the soil and so on. Yes, it's. I really want to emphasize in the strongest possible way, Rosie, that the farming practices in this country are absolutely catastrophic for the actual farming industry, and nobody talks about it. Everybody's talking about the amount of milk we need to produce and the amount of halloumi it's going to do. Have we ever thought about the quality of the milk we actually produce? It's one of the worst qualities. Now, it doesn't matter for halloumi because we boil it, but it does matter if you want to actually make any other types of cheese. And if this, kerfuffle about halloumi actually falls in his head, which it will, and we're left with the surplus of dairy milk, of cattle milk, what are we going to do with it? Since this is at the level of clinical mastitis, you cannot make the type of cheese that the French and the Dutch are making and the German, simply because it has a very high load of bacteria, and that's affecting the fermentation. So, the message I want to say, when you develop policy for anything, but in particular this issue, you need to look at science. Science must underpin everything.
Okay, and we've gone way off talking about the veterinary school, so let's go back to that. I want to know what form the courses will take, because where are you going to get your patients from, for a start? You mentioned farm animals is fine, but most of the vets here deal in what you called companion animals. I mean, cats, dogs, snakes perhaps, rodents. Where are you going to get all of those from? And I'm fascinated to know how soon the students, if you like, get a hands-on practice.
Okay. So the course is a 5-year course. It's built along the lines of most bridge programs. And students will actually get practicing, even from the first year, they will start getting into animal handling and so on. The actual clinical training of students to actually see the patients and really deliver, diagnosis and so on will happen in the 5th year, as in most other programs. So in the 5th year is a full clinical practice. In the first 2 years is what we call preclinical, with a little bit of animal handling. Years 3 and 4 is what we call, the sort of pathology section, where students learn a lot about the theory and some of the practice. And in year 5, they apply that. Now, because indeed that students will spend most of their time on small animal practices, companion animals, we've developed a network of clinicians, of veterinarians here in Nicosia. They're going to be actually linked with a small animal hospital that we're going to develop. So just like in any other country, you have this, what you call the first opinion practices, where, your local vets, but we're not taking any local vets, we're taking the ones that have the biggest clientele and also have the best service, linking that with the referral hospital that we're going to build. And they will therefore become part of of a conveyor belt, if you like. Animals coming in for first opinion, and if they need inpatient treatment, they come to the university. And of course, there you're going to have 24/7 emergency care. So the whole range, and also CT and MRI and so on, the whole range of care will be delivered by supplementing the existing facilities, or complementing them rather, with a very expensive facility, a very expensive hospital.
So will you get to the point where generally people who have pets in Nicosia might stop going to their usual vet and in an emergency go straight to the veterinary school's hospital?
In an emergency, that's what happens, yes. In an emergency, they will come into our hospital for the sort of the daily care or the monthly care of their pets, fighting parasites, the vaccines and things like that. They will go to their local vets. But some of these local vets will be actually linked with the university. They will have an academic status. So they will be getting also a lot of training, because we will bring some specialists from the United Kingdom in particular to offer these people continuous professional development and become sub-specialists. Because what people don't know, unlike medics, the veterinarians, once they get a degree, the day after they can actually practice if their degree gets registered and so on. So therefore, we need to make sure that the vets, at least the ones that are going to be associated with us, are not trying everything. You go to your vet, if you find a vet that's a specialist for orthopedics, a specialist for internal medicine, you need to have some specialization.
And we should finally add that this, as you said, has been ongoing since I think about 2017 it was first mooted, but that the DVM, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine programme, has been evaluated and indeed certified by the Higher Education Quality Assurance and Certification Body. That's presumably in the UK, is it?
No, that's in Cyprus. There's no Cyprus, but it's built on the UK model. But it's made up of the panel of international of experts that came to evaluate the program. It's a very international and high quality program. Now, the fact that we said that it has a British stigma in that it's built the curriculum along the lines of the British system, and the day one skills, as we call them, that the RVs will acquire are those required by the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, which is the professional body in the United Kingdom accrediting professional degrees. So in this country, we don't have this type of accreditation, or indeed in any European country we don't have that. We have the academic accreditation from the body of higher education authority, and they came and they evaluated the program with experts, and they gave us the go-ahead and the approval, yes. Have
any students registered yet?
Oh, no, it's only been live for 3 days, but we've already got leads from around the world, I'm told by a marketing team that we're getting leads from South Africa, from various other countries, from Greece, Israel. So yes, now the next few days will actually show. We expect to get probably in the first year, we don't want to get more than 20, 25 students. That's how, when you have a new school, it always starts with a few students, and then as with the medical school, and then you really grow. The medical school has grown exponentially. The medical school has more competition than the vet school, by the way, and it's survived. It's really one of the best in the region.
Stavros Malas, Dean of the newly established Veterinary School and also Professor of Genetics at the University of Nicosia. Thanks for telling us all about very exciting Cyprus' first ever veterinary school, opening in September.
Always a pleasure, Rosa. Thank you very much.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
The 5th Robotex Pan-Cyprian Robotics competition is taking place on the weekend of June the 25th and the 26th. It's all happening up at the Sports Centre of the University of Cyprus. But what is it all about? We are welcoming from the Cyprus Computer Society, Panikos Masouras. Panikos, 5th one, these have become quite popular, I think, with audiences who like to go and see just what robotics is all about. So tell us what's coming up this year.
Yeah, thank you, Rosie, for this interview. Well, the 5th Pan-Cyprian Robotics competition, which is based on the International Robotex competition, which is based in Estonia for at least 15 years now. What we expect to see the weekend of 25th and 26th of June, at the end of this month, is a festival of children of all ages competing on different challenges using different kinds of robots. So, for example, we will have competitions in which robots have to follow a line and start from a certain point and manage to end to the end of this line at different times. So, depending on the time, the robots will be ranked, and they will be finalized as one, first, second, and third, and so on.
Let me get that clear. That's basically then a race.
Yeah, that will be a race, but the race is not just a single line. It will be a line that has turns, has vertical lines, has crossings. So the robot will have to figure out which way to go in order to get to the end. So we will have this kind of competition. We will have what we call sumo. Sumo is a Japanese battle between heavyweight humans. In our case, we will have robots fighting each other and trying to throw each other from the field. And if they throw the robot out of the field, then the winner is the robot that remains in the field. We will have another competition which is called maze. It's like a labyrinth through which the robot has to find a way to the center in order to be the winner. If you remember the ancient Minotaur that Theseus, who was trying to get out of the labyrinth in ancient Greece, that's the same concept as this competition that we're trying to implement. And of course, we will have the educational robotics competition in which teams have prepared their projects based on a specific theme. The theme of this year is waste management, and they will have to present them in front of a committee that will go through each of the teams, ask them different questions, ask them to present their project, and they will be evaluated based on certain criteria. We also have an open educational robotics competition in which the teams prepare the project based on a theme that they decide and they feel that is important nowadays, and this project will have to serve a certain purpose. We also have a competition called Folk Race. This is a rally in which 5 robots compete at the same time to pass from a certain path. This is a very big field. Robots may collide each other, but they will have to find their way through the field in order to get to the end. We also have a firefighting competition. Fires in Cyprus are very common this summer. We all have to be very careful. So we have devised a competition in which a robot has to identify where there is a fire and go to extinguish it, goes to put it off. And there will be 4 different areas in which fires exist, and the robot has to find the locations of all of them and put them off. And another competition that we also introduced this year is what we call color picking. And there will be different cubes scattered on a field. Cubes have different colors. They carry different weights and different values. And the robots have to find these cubes, collect them to a certain place, and the winner with the maximum points will win. This is somebody that different types of competitions will have.
Now, the firefighting one, I think, is one that you're hoping will attract more women into this sector.
Well, this is the first time that we run this competition, Rosie, and we are socially sensitive, so we try to identify problems that exist in our society and promote them to the participants so that we raise awareness among them in order to avoid these problems in the future. So we hope that we will have their participation in this new competition, and we hope that the participants will enjoy it.
Right, but how well represented are girls and women when it comes to things like robotics?
Okay, we all have to admit the fact that women and girls are generally underrepresented in areas relating to STEAM, science, technology, engineering, not so much in arts, but and in mathematics. Okay, this is a fact that is being proved by different researchers during the last decade at least. So the effort is to promote STEAM among girl population as well, and we are doing this specific competition. We name it Girls Firefighting in order to attract the attention of girls in this particular competition. Overall, about 25% of participants in Robotex are girls. We started with a percentage of 8 or 9% back in 2017, and this percentage is increasing year by year. So we see an increase in participation of girls in Robotex. We are doing our best. There is more to be done, and we are hoping that in the coming years this number will increase. But we have to be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves. We we have to be honest with parents, we have to be honest with policymakers that if we don't change the culture of our society that promotes girls to certain professions, let's say, to be lawyers, to be doctors, to be accountants, to be teachers themselves, we will still have the same problem in the years to come. So we have to do things early enough in our education system and remove the stereotypes that exist in our society that girls will have to deal with only these kind of professions and so on. Yeah. So,
right, let's talk about the educational robotics. I mean, do our schools have robotics classes?
Okay, they don't have robotics classes per se, but there is robotic equipment in schools, both primary and secondary level schools, and it is of course up to the teachers to introduce robotics in their classes and use them as a tool to attract attention of the students, or use robotics to deliver a course, for example, a particular lecture, for example. So there is no specific course in which children are taught robotics, but robotics systems are there in order to be taken advantage by pioneer, I would say, or champion students, that teachers that they want to use them and take advantage of them and exploit them in their courses.
Well, AI, of course, is big news everywhere, and it does seem that we're going to be at a disadvantage if our young people are not at least familiar with robotics and the way they're going. So you're hoping, I presume, that a lot of people will come and watch these competitions on the 25th and 26th of June. As I said at the beginning, it's at the Sports Centre of the University of Cyprus, and they can find out more, I think, online. Have you got a link?
Yeah, of course. There is the website of the event is www.robotex.org.cy. And yes, the event is open, it's free, and we invite both young children, students, their parents, their friends, their families to join us at this exciting event. And we will all have fun and, applaud the winners and say thank you to everybody that participated.
Perfect stuff. Thank you very much indeed for telling us all about it. That's from the Cyprus Computer Society, Panikos Masouras, and that event taking place, as we just said, on the 25th and 26th of June at the University of Cyprus. And it's celebrating its 5th birthday. There might even be a robotic cake. Who knows?
Oh, yes. Who knows? Yes, this is a surprise that we have for people who will be visiting the competition. Let me not say more about this. It will be a real surprise. And yes, it's our 5th birthday. And we are getting mature. And we are growing up. And we hope to have this competition in more years to come.
Well, I hope that wasn't a spoiler alert. That was just off the top of my head. But anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Happy roboting, Panikos, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rosie, for giving us the opportunity. I hope to see you at the event as well.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
And we finish up this week's programme with a couple of environmental stories that have been very much in the news recently. The first one was a huge fire of stored old tyres at the Vasilico area near Limassol last weekend. It took 8 fire engines and a team of 25 firefighters working around the clock to finally bring the fire under control by midnight, but not before it had released a toxic plume of black smoke which hung over the area and then was wafted towards the beaches in the Larnaca district. The scandal is that these tyres were stored in an area where they were supposed to be being recycled, but it appears that if we go back to an audit several years ago, the audit office reported that many of the tyres were being stored there and had not been processed, despite the company being paid to do just that. It seems also that these tyres had been included in the quantities that Cyprus put in its report to the European Commission as having been processed. The Environment Department said that the tyres were where they were in accordance with the required permits. However, the Environment Minister hinted on Wednesday that the department's report on the fire showed that too many tyres were being stored at the facility. It's just part of Cyprus' rather appalling record on waste management and particularly how clear the figures are on what we actually do recycle, let alone who is paying who to recycle what. And staying with the environment, the plans for the Agamas Peninsula, which is Cyprus' last pristine natural environment, have been kept very much under wraps by the Interior Ministry. Yet some idea of what's planned has leaked out, and that has caused the call for a huge demonstration tomorrow in central Nicosia. Demonstrators are requested to gather at the Ministry of the Interior, and from there they will march peacefully to the presidential palace, demanding the protection of the Agamas Peninsula from dispersed building and uncontrolled development. You can find out more on Facebook. The protest is being organised by the Save Agamas, Save Cyprus movement and the Natural Coast Rescue Initiative. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.